Welcome back to our channel. I don't think I have ever been more excited to share a video as I am today. Not only does this video mark the beginning of our new business adventure, but the transformation that we made in our garage in a very short period of time it turned out better than we could have ever dreamed of. It makes me even more excited about what the future holds for us. It makes Joe and I want to spend even more time with one another doing things that we love. And the sheer amount of joy that both Joe and I feel every single time we walk into the garage, aka our new workshop, it cannot even be put into words. We're gonna be breaking this garage makeover up into two separate videos. This video is gonna be mainly dedicated to clearing the space out, everything we did to prep for the epoxy floors, how we laid the epoxy floors, a little bit of painting that we did. And then in a couple of days, I'm gonna be posting part 2 of this garage makeover, which is really dedicated to all of the storage and organization that we chose for the workshop. So without any further ado, let's get into today's video. So on film, it may appear like we had really great storage in our garage, but in actuality, all of the cabinets and all of the shelves in the cabinets were completely falling apart. Most of them don't even have backings anymore, the doors don't close, and a lot of the shelves are completely lopsided because they all warped. We have food items in with cleaning items, in with paint. We have tools, stacked on junk, and absolutely no work surfaces. The number one goal we have with this garage makeover is making it functional for storage and also to be used as our dedicated workspace for the new woodworking and crafting business. So first things first, when redoing any space, you have to clear everything out. This means getting each and every single thing out of the garage. Joe and I started taking things out literally one by one. We tried to keep this process as organized as possible. We had a trash pile, a donate pile, and then use large storage bins to separate items. One by one, each cabinet got emptied and then taken out to our side yard. Then each bin was taken out and stacked up. I can't even count the number of trips in and out of the garage that we took emptying everything out. I think it took us at least half a day to get 2 bays cleared out, and then we moved over to the 3rd bay, which was probably the most difficult because it actually has all of our gym equipment, 2 refrigerators, and a huge wooden cabinet. If you are anything like myself, this is the period of any makeover that you completely dread. Things are always gonna look a lot worse before they look any better. We literally had stuff everywhere. You could barely walk in our side yard. Our front yard looked like a junkyard. Our backyard had a ton of my old newborn photography props. And inside the house, it wasn't any better. If there was an empty space, it got filled with crap and then more crap. It also didn't help that shipments for our new organization and all of our storage stuff was piling up literally all around us. So what did we do to get rid of almost half of all of this junk? The next thing we did was put stuff up for sale. These were items like old bikes, unused sports equipment, some of my photography props, old tools, and then the cabinets that we were using as storage. Joe always has a lot of luck using the OfferUp app, but I've actually always preferred Facebook Marketplace. We actually did really well selling stuff. I think we ended up making about $1,000 total, which is way more than I thought that we were gonna make. I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but you can actually rent dumpsters right from your regular trash provider. They drop it off in front of your house, you fill it up, and then they come and take it away and bring it to the dump for you. Our company offered 2 different sizes, and as much as we could have used the large bin, we just got the little one, which was around $200. Everything else that we needed to get rid of, we donated. The pile looks less impressive from this angle, but I assure you it was the most we have ever donated at one time. It spread out at least 10 feet. With the garage emptied out, it was finally time to start working on the floors. Because our floors looked so bad, we decided that we were gonna lay epoxy down. There were so many stains and spills and grease on the floor, we wanted really just to start completely fresh. The first step to laying epoxy is you need to clean and prep the floors. We brought out our power washer and first hosed everything down. There was so much debris and dirt and sawdust everywhere. I honestly don't think that in the 16 years we have lived in this home, we have ever really cleaned behind the cabinets or the workbench. Once the floors were power washed, we removed any large chunks and debris that were stuck to the ground. Then we used this concrete floor prep to clean it up. You just pour it all over the floors and then scrub, scrub, scrub. To help it dry off a little bit quicker, we used a large floor squeegee to remove all of the excess water. Walking into the garage the next morning was so amazing. No funny smells, no dust, no dirt, and no grime on the floor. The next step to laying the epoxy floors is completely optional, but I am so thankful that Joe decided to prime the floors. In just a little bit, I'm actually going to show you the difference between an area that we didn't prime and one that we did prime, and the difference is huge. So yes, this is an added step, but it was super easy and very well worth it. It's not a difficult task either. You just have to paint the floors like you would paint the walls. You need a paintbrush for the corners and edges, a large roller for the larger areas, and it's all done. I did all of the detail work while Joe rolled on the primer. Just make sure you start in one area and then move your way out from it, just to make sure that you don't get stuck and need to walk on wet primer. I think the whole thing took us about 30 minutes tops, and then you let it dry overnight before laying the epoxy. And now really quick, going back to what I had mentioned about adding the primer into this process. Because the third car bay was going to be covered up with gym mats anyway, we really didn't think it would matter too much to skip a couple of the steps, namely laying down the primer. Thankfully, this area is getting covered up because it came out so terrible without the primer. It was totally uneven. The epoxy pooled in some areas, it pulled away in other areas. Bottom line, take the extra steps and do it properly from the very beginning. So when we were picking the actual colors for the epoxy floors that we were going to put down, it ended up being way more of an adventure than it really should have, thanks to me. When we were first going over colors, we were just gonna order it right from Amazon. And when Joe was showing me the colors, he didn't really have my undivided attention. So when he showed me pictures, I looked at it really quick and I was like, great, I love it, no problem. Go ahead and go with that. Well, after we laid the primer down, the next morning when I went out, obviously I loved how clean everything looked, but it also felt very cold and uninviting. And so it made me a little bit nervous at the time, like, oh, I don't know if we picked the right colors for the epoxy. Well, when the epoxy showed up that day, I looked at the package and I thought, well, you know, I probably still could make it work. But then I went online and really looked at other samples of this color, and even more so, I didn't like it. And then when I researched a little bit more into other colors, I really fell in love with the beige mocha color. There's not really any way to deter you away from how you're feeling, so let's just go ahead and get beige. Well, we went on Amazon and that color actually wasn't available, and there was no indication that it was going to be back in stock with any sellers. So we thought, okay, no problem, let's buy it locally. We tried Home Depot, we tried Lowe's, we tried local hardware stores, and this was not available anywhere. The only thing that we found was one box that was available about an hour and a half away, and then we found 2 more boxes that were available another hour and a half away in the opposite direction. Being the amazing husband that Joe is and how he always wants to have his wife happy, he ended up taking the trip. So the process to laying epoxy floors is actually really simple. You need a roller, a paintbrush, and a plastic liner to hold the epoxy. Everything you need comes right in the box. The bag of epoxy itself is split into 2 sections, and then you kind of have to pop the seam inside the bag to mix both of the liquids together. Then you shake it up and pour some of it into the liner to do the edges and corners with a brush. For the larger areas, Joe found that pouring it onto a small area and then rolling it out was the easiest way to get it done. Again, this is a really simple process, but it does get a little bit stressful because you only have a certain amount of time between painting on the epoxy and then getting the Flecks thrown onto it. It really can be done with only one person, but having 2 people there really sped things along. I would do the edges, corners, and the seams, and then Joe would come and roll the epoxy on. Then I would come back and toss in the Flecks. Another note here, I actually didn't like the Flecks that came in the Mocha kit. They have separate bags that can be purchased, which just opens up a ton more color variations and options for you. Another little epoxy tip that we want to give you is that it's a really good idea to leave a little gap between rolling it on and where you place the Flecks. If you put them down too close to the edges, when you go to do the next area, those Flecks will end up all over the roller and in the epoxy itself, making the finish super lumpy. Once the epoxy and the Flecks are down, it's time to let it dry and cure overnight. They say that within 24 hours of laying the epoxy and the Flecks down, it's ready to go and you could actually drive on it. But we decided that we were going to add one more little step. They had a clear coat that was available, and we figured it was going to be a good idea to add a little layer of protection to the floors. Another reason why we wanted to add the clear coat is to reduce the shine on the floors. The clear coat comes with an anti-skid additive, which just dulls down the epoxy a little bit and adds a bit of texture. The process to laying the clear coat is just as simple, if not easier, than laying the epoxy itself. You have a bag with a seal inside that needs to be broken. You shake it up for a couple of minutes and then pour it into a bucket and stir in the anti-skid if you decide to use it. That is totally optional as well. Then you pour it on the floors and just roll it on. The biggest tip we can give you here is to really pay attention to the seams and the overlap. It really is difficult to tell where those seams are at, so when in doubt, just go over the area again really lightly with the roller to be safe. Then once the clear coat is on, you wait another 24 hours and it is completely ready to go. I seriously love the floors so much. It turned out even better than I imagined, and the icing on the cake was that we saved over $2,000 by doing the epoxy floors ourselves. The last step to this garage makeover that I'm going to share in this video is our painting. So when we originally first decided that we were going to redo the garage, I had no intention of painting it because the way I saw it was we're going to be buying new storage. A lot of the walls were going to end up being covered with cabinets and a slat wall and the workbench. So I didn't really see much point in wasting money on paint when a lot of the walls you weren't even going to see. Joe may have thought about something different, but when it came down to it, after laying the epoxy floor down and seeing just how great and brand new everything looked, it really did make sense to just paint the space as well. The walls weren't in too bad of a condition. We knew that a lot of the walls were going to end up being covered by the cabinets and the storage. Joe decided it was absolutely necessary though, so we went ahead and tackled it. All right, so that's all I have for today's video. The next video I'm hoping to post within the next few days, and it's gonna deal with everything having to do with the cabinets we chose, our storage options, and all things organization. This really is an epic transformation, and we cannot wait to share the rest of it with you. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already and turn those notifications on so that you don't miss the next video or any of our other videos. Thanks so much, and I will see you soon.